All right, this is Eating Out Heart Healthy with North Kansas City Hospital. I'm Adrienne Pullins. I'm a registered dietitian with Hy-Vee. So I'm at the Berry Road location. So thank you all for tuning in to this class. So the topic, like I said, is eating out heart healthy. So I'm going to go through some information and then show some examples throughout the presentation as well. If you have questions, you can put them in the chat box with the Q&A, and we'll get to those towards the end. So we're at Hy-Vee, and which obviously is a grocery store. Most of you may be familiar with that. So maybe you're wondering why we're talking about eating out here at Hy-Vee. But we actually have a number of different ready-to-eat food options, as well as kind of some restaurant meals. So we just thought it would be a good kind of combination presentation to go over all of the nutrition information. So this is Heart Month, so big focus on heart health this month, of course. And dining out and eating heart healthy can be a little bit of a challenge, perhaps, but I've got some tips for you to help make it a little bit easier. So why would we want to eat heart healthy anytime or while we're dining out? If people have heart disease, such as high blood pressure, high cholesterol, CHF, maybe you recently had a heart surgery, a heart attack, any event like that, in cardiac rehab, that sort of thing, that are suggesting to follow a heart healthy diet to keep your heart healthier for the rest of your life. So, as always, with heart healthy eating, some of the things that we focus on limiting, things like saturated fat, sodium, sugar, those are kind of the top three things that I'll be talking quite a bit about today. And the things we want to increase for a heart healthy diet, getting more heart healthy foods in there. Unsaturated fats, a lot of times they're referred to as healthy fats, fiber, and fruits and vegetables. Those are our three categories that we want to always try to have more of for a heart healthy diet. The main goals of for each person will vary depending on your health situation. For some people, it may be more necessary to limit your sodium. And for other people, you may have more of a focus on the saturated fat or the sugar, or sometimes all of it. So just not everyone's going to be the same. So when you're eating out, consider a couple of things. Probably won't find something that is going to just be the perfect food, just because of many different factors when we're eating out. But just thinking about how you can make steps to improvement, or just making a couple swaps here and there that make your meal a little bit healthier. Also, I like to remind people, how often are you dining out? If you have a weekly date with some friends and it is kind of often, I think that's a situation we can be a little more careful with things that we order. But if it's, once every few months kind of thing, there might be a little bit more wiggle room, depending on your comfort level, to have a splurge here and there. And then the last thing to consider, a meal coming up that you're going to be eating out, maybe eat a little lighter in the day, especially on the sodium, if you feel like the eating out meal is going to be higher sodium. But that way you can just kind of within all of your limits. So some challenges at restaurants. I know that can happen quite often. One of them being there's lots of fried foods, which generally means higher saturated fats. It can mean more sodium also. Another challenge, sodium is hard to avoid. Lots of sauces and condiments have a lot of sodium in them, processed foods. Even just simple things like bread and cheese that are kind of common in restaurants can be culprits for high sodium as well. Restaurants, often there's lack of choices for fruits and vegetables, especially in fast food. We know the side items we normally have, but I'm going to talk later about some other side items that we can look for. Another challenge at restaurants, A lot of times the meals are low in fiber just because it uses more refined grains. Like I said, not as many fruits and vegetables and things like that. So we don't typically get a lot of fiber when we're at restaurants. And I did want to see, feel free to enter in the chat. What are some challenges that you've had, that you've faced while dining out? If you've been looking for a certain way of eating, or just certain restaurants or meals that have been challenging, let us know in the chat and we'll kind of read through those. So, all right. So first of all, when we're thinking about dining out heart healthy, you want to get to know the menu and the lingo on the menu. So I'm going to go through in a minute some words that can indicate meals that are higher in fats or higher sodium, and then some things that we can encourage too. So yeah, we've got one comment.
One of the challenges is not knowing how many calories are in dishes or meals.
Yeah, so not knowing how many calories are in dishes or meals was one of the chats. Thank you so much for submitting that. On the websites nowadays, a lot of restaurants will post the calories and the nutrition facts. So a little bit of pre-planning is your best bet. I know sometimes if you're kind of on the fly and it's a last minute decision, we don't always have access to that, but that's my best suggestion for finding that information. Is on the website or even in the restaurant. There may be some more information available than what's just on the menu. So
another challenge is only thing available is salads.
Okay, so another challenge, the only healthier things available are salads. So definitely depending on where you go, the choices can be limited. So that's why I wanted to talk about as we go along, just how you can make improvements, even if it's not maybe the ideal choice that we would want. All right, so on the menu, so you want to get familiar with some of these menu lingos. So my first category are some words. I put to limit these, but basically these are words that are going to indicate higher fat options, and higher in saturated fat. So you may start noticing some patterns here. So we've got fried, battered, crispy, au gratin. So we think of au gratin potatoes, which is a creamy, cheesy potato. Scalloped again, so that usually indicates a creamy or cheesy, buttery sauce there. Buttered, creamy, creamed, stuffed, smothered. So smothered usually has a sauce or cheese or lots of toppings on it. And then sauteed, which when I first saw sauteed, I was a little surprised, just because I think of like just a skillet and that sort of thing. But I think when you saute things, a lot of times you are using maybe a little bit more oil. So it just depends. But so these are our foods to limit. And then I'm going to set this down. So those are high fat indicators. I don't have it on a paper here, but there are some indicators for foods that might be high sodium. Things like smoked, pickled, au jus sauce, soy sauce, teriyaki sauce, cocktail sauce. So a lot of those condiments and sauces can kind of indicate the higher sodium. So look for sauces that are flavored with herbs, spices, vinegar-based sauces, wine. Sometimes at restaurants there'll be kind of a wine sauce that an item is cooked in, and so those are some better options to have less sodium. So what do we want to look for? Here's my second list. So we want to choose more of these. We've got steamed, grilled, blackened, baked, stir fry, broiled, roasted, braised, and poached. So those all indicate methods of cooking that have less fat in them. I wanted to talk about braised because to me, braised is a healthier cooking method because it's with liquid, but I do feel like it can be a little perhaps a little higher sodium if it's being braised in a broth or something like that. So it's always worth asking what the food is being cooked into. So remember those menu label lingos to direct you in some healthier choices without even knowing the ingredients or the numbers of anything. So a lot of those descriptive words can really lead you on the right track. Okay, so I've got a few ordering tips and suggestions for swaps. So here at Hy-Vee, we have different grab and go, prepared meals you can just make and grab. We also have our market grills. That is more of a made to order type of restaurants. We've got burgers, appetizers, there are some salads, there's breakfast. So I'm going to be talking about that menu as well as our kitchen and our Asian section that you guys might be familiar with. So 5 tips I've got. First tip, ask for cheese, dressings, sauces, gravy, or butter on the side. And the reason for that is so you can be in charge of how much you put on there and how much you eat. So I have our Cobb salad. This is from our market grill. So the toppings that come on this, I picked this mainly because of the avocado, which is a heart healthy fat. So I really wanted to feature a menu option that had avocado on there. But what I've done is I asked for the bacon bits on the side. I asked for the blue cheese on the side. And then I asked for my dressing on the side. And so that way, and then also we've got tomatoes, boiled egg, and chicken along with our grains. So we've got our proteins and our veggies and stuff on there. So that way, if you maybe just wanted a little bit of bacon on here, not this whole thing, you could just kind of sprinkle that. Same with the cheese. Maybe you didn't want all that cheese on there to cut down on the saturated fat. You could just sprinkle a little bit to get that flavor, which is the best part of blue cheese, is that it has a strong flavor, so you don't always need as much. So think of things like that too. If you get something with a lot of flavor, you don't always need as much quantity. And then the dressing, of course, you guys may have heard that tip over the years, but I can pour this on myself. You can do the dip thing, each bite in your dressing and that sort of thing. However, it helps you to kind of control the portion of your dressing a little bit. So tip number 1, ask for things, toppings and such on the side so you can choose how much is on there. My second tip is look for veggie option for sides. So we've talked about that a lot of times, especially at fast food, there may not be a lot of options. I know I've seen fruit cups and things like that sometimes at restaurants, but more so at your sit down type restaurants, there should be a vegetable option. So I brought in, so this is from our kitchen, just walk up to our counter and order a hot meal. But what I want to go for is half your plate with vegetables. So again, no matter where you are, or you don't know the numbers or anything like that, if you think of your plate, half your plate with vegetables, we've got a quarter of our plate with our protein and a quarter of our plate with our starchy food or carbohydrate, being our potatoes here. But half a plate, whether it's a steamed vegetable, a lot of restaurants offer a steamed vegetable option. There could be a little house or side salad type option as well that you could do. But I think that's just a really visual thing that you can think about, like, okay, where's my vegetables? How much are they on my plate here? So half a plate with your veggies. The next tip I have, skip the combo meal and resist the upsize or the upsell. So sometimes at restaurants, they'll say, do you want to make that a combo meal? Or do you want to just jumbo size for only a little bit more money or that sort of thing? But just stick to your guns, stick to what you want. If you want that smaller size, you could even order a kid size sometimes at some restaurants to get a smaller portion. But that kind of going along with that, choosing the smallest portion that's available can also make a big difference. And I found that out with looking at some of our Asian meals. So this is a rice bowl. It typically, if you get it to go here at Hy-Vee, it comes in this little black bowl. So it's got about 8 ounces of rice and about 8 ounces of the meat and vegetable topping. And I will tell you the sodium, it's kind of high. It's about 1,500 milligrams. However, you get the bigger size, which we do offer that as well. That's going to put you over 2,000 milligrams per serving. So if you can get the smaller size and save yourself some sodium intake, some saturated fat intake, you've made some good steps. So, or you could split a meal. If you did get the larger meal, share it with somebody or save it for leftovers for the next day. So either way, you're making your portions smaller and cutting down on those numbers. Another thing I recommend sometimes for people who are eating fast food, maybe you go out to lunch on your lunch break and that sort of thing. And I'll recommend people to take along their own sides. Maybe you take along an apple or a little baggie of carrots and celery, and you have your own side. So you can get the hamburger, but you skip the fries that day and you've got your side. So do different things like that. So everything's not off the table. You can have kind of some trade-offs that way too. My tip number 4, looking for healthier add-ins. So back to our salad. I said I wanted to add in some healthy fats. So I found an option that has avocado, which is a healthy fat, good for heart health. Some other things we can focus on adding in if we can find them on the menu. Things with beans. So beans are a great source of fiber. So anytime there's a dish with beans or you can add beans to something, I would recommend that. You can add nuts. That's another thing with heart healthy fats. So sometimes salads will have nuts on them, or toppings of sauces or breakfast foods. You can get some nuts in with that too. Seafood and salmon. A lot of times people tell me that they like salmon or like seafood, but they don't really know how to cook it. So that could be an option when you're out to eat to get that heart healthy food, and you don't have to cook it. You can have the restaurant cook it for you. So looking for seafood options at restaurants, I think, is a great option to, especially if you don't really eat them at home very often. And then the last item to look for to add in is whole grains. So I know that can be challenging sometimes, but a lot of times restaurants will have a whole grain bread option, or maybe a brown rice, a quinoa, or some other grain like that for a side. So look for those that can give us some more fiber. So avocados, beans, nuts, whole grains, seafood or salmon, those are all things we can look for on the menu to add in to our meals. And then my tip number 5, which I did touch on that a few minutes ago, do some research in advance, review the menu online. That is the beauty of online these days. So that way you kind of know what to expect when you get there. You can also kind of prepare some questions ahead of time if you have specific things. And don't be afraid to ask those questions, especially how things are prepared, or to make special requests like leaving the salt off of something or anything like that. It's totally possible, totally worth an ask at the minimum, and just seeing how they can accommodate you. But one of the things, so on our menu, we have a side of coleslaw. So it just says coleslaw, it doesn't describe it. So I think a great question to ask in this example would be, is this coleslaw a creamy kind or a vinegar-based kind? Because that can make a difference in your nutrition as well. So ours is a creamy coleslaw, but I just thought that was I just thought that was a good idea to verify. Just a good question to clarify on. So something as simple as that, what's on your coleslaw? That can lead you in the direction of a heart healthier item. So those are my 5 tips. I do have some more tips to go through specific to some of our meals at Hy-Vee that can also apply elsewhere, or for some specific cuisines too. Okay, so we talked a little bit about Asian food earlier. with the portion size. So I wanted to compare a couple different other things with Asian food as well. So our bowl here has white rice, and then this is the fried rice option. So, and then we also have a lo mein noodle option here. So that can make a big difference in your meal. The steamed rice, no sodium, no fat. The fried rice has 440 milligrams of sodium, 4.5 grams of fat, and then the lo mein noodles, the same portion size for all of that. It's 1,500 milligrams of sodium and 2.5 grams of fat. So just swapping your side dish from fried rice to steamed rice gets you a lot of bonus points. Also, I learned about some of our appetizers. So I know these are all fried foods, but even some of the fillings can make a difference as well.
Ma'am. Ma'am. Not that.
So they can vary. So we've got our chicken egg roll. It's got, I should have started with a different one actually. Let me start with the vegetable spring roll, which is this little size. So 50 calories, 0 grams of sodium. So that's pretty low. A pot sticker, 100 calories, 1.5 grams of saturated fat, 60 milligrams of sodium. A crab rangoon, 160 calories, 3.5 grams of saturated fat, 150 milligrams of sodium. And then our chicken egg roll, 180 calories, 2 grams of saturated fat, 380 milligrams of sodium. So you can kind of see saturated fat, some are a little higher in sodium. But just even knowing those differences can help you make good choices at the Asian restaurants. All right, what about pizza? Any pizza fans out there? So we have our pizza section, our Italian section, or Mia Pizza, where you can build your own pizza. Obviously, lots of different pizza options around Kansas City. But some tips for healthier pizza, what I would recommend, number one being choose a thin crust if you like it, just because that will be less carbohydrates, less calories than the thick crust. Number two, I really recommend to try to limit to just one type of meat. A lot of times the pizza toppings, sausage, pepperoni, things like that are very high in sodium and fat. So even just by choosing one of those instead of 3 or 4 different meat toppings can really cut down on the fat and sodium in your pizza too. Ham will be lower saturated fat, although still got the sodium, but just from a fat level, ham's a good choice. Chicken, there's a lot more chicken options for pizza toppings these days, so that would be another lean choice too. Sauces can also make a big difference. We looked at our list earlier. There was a lot of creamy words on the list to avoid. So choosing more of a red sauce and marinara sauce versus those creamy sauces, just because anything creamy or Alfredo will be made with more fat than those red sauces. So that goes for pizza toppings, pasta sauces as well. And then another tip when you're choosing your pizza toppings, think about how many veggie toppings you can pile on. So I picked up a few toppings that we offer from our Mia Pizza. I found green peppers, banana peppers. These are roasted red peppers, onions, fresh tomatoes, spinach, olives, and a pineapple. So obviously pineapple's a fruit, and I know pineapple on pizza can be a controversial topic. I'm a fan of it, but either way, we're adding some fruits and vegetables to our pizza, which can help to add extra nutrition, antioxidants, a little bit of fiber from those as well. So go for veggies on your pizza as much as you can. And then the last thing about pizza is, again, our portion size. So maybe instead of 2 or 3 pieces, we just have 1 or 2 pieces, and then have a side salad or something to go with it to continue to fill us up. So Um, for deli, if you're grabbing a deli sandwich, the lowest fat content is going to be with your poultry, so chicken or turkey, ham or roast beef, rather than your salamis and pepperonis and things like that. Lower sodium content at the deli can be challenging. Here at Hy-Vee, we do have the Deluso brand, which has some reduced sodium options of our ham, turkey, and a roast beef. Cheese, Swiss cheese is going to be your lowest sodium cheese option. And generally mozzarella is your lowest fat option of cheese. The breads, unfortunately, can be kind of high in sodium. So go for, again, a smaller sandwich size. Look for a whole grain one if there's an option. Maybe that would be a good option to do a little bit of research on to see which bread is going to have the least amount of sodium at the place you're going to. And then also try to pump it up with nutrition too. Try to look for some hummus or avocado spread instead of mayonnaise and things like that. Add your veggies. You can always add spinach, lettuce, tomatoes, all those delicious toppings. And then maybe skip the chips just to swap that out for a fruit or a veggie. Maybe that's a good time to bring along a piece of fruit with you if you're going to have that for your meal. And then I think we have I'll cover breakfast super fast because I know breakfast can be a good time to eat out too. And it can be challenging. A lot of breakfast foods are sugary or high in fat. So again, limit your breakfast meats, maybe just one at the meal if you can. If there's a turkey option, generally that will be less fat, not always lower sodium though. So you do want to double check that. Choose a whole grain option when it's available. So if there's a whole grain bread item that you can swap it out for, or oatmeal or something like that to get some more fiber, that's a great tip. Look for fruit on for a side dish. And then again, no surprise, add some veggies. And a lot of times you can find a great omelet option and you can pile on some veggies. In our market grill, we have one called the garden omelet. And it's just got, let's see what it's got. Mushrooms, red onions, bell peppers, tomatoes, and cheese with your egg. So that's a ton of extra into your breakfast that we might not always get. So we covered a lot of things. Hopefully it showed you some delicious looking meals as well, and covered some tips for choosing. Like I said, it can be hard to find the perfect item, and that is okay. Don't stress about it. Find what you can improve and swap out, and find what you can kind of control a little bit, and then go from there. So I think we have some questions. So
What is the recommended daily maximum saturated fat consumption for an adult?
okay, so what the question was, what is the recommended daily saturated fat maximum consumption? So that actually varies a little bit by your calorie level, just because it's been based off of a percentage of the calorie level. I believe on like a 2,000 calorie, it's like 20 grams of saturated fat or less would be ideal. Think so. Sorry, my math is failing me right now, but so it's less saturated fat. Your saturated fat goal is less than your total fat goal. One thing I try to look for, which again is not always going to fit this guideline, but if you find something that's under like 2 grams of saturated fat a serving, that is considered a low saturated fat food. And again, not everything's going to fit that, and don't stress over that number. But just having that, I thought that might be helpful just as a guideline.
Is battered fish a healthy option?
Okay, is battered fish a healthy option? So I did mention looking for seafood when you were at restaurants. So battered fish is going to be usually fried, which is so a grilled or baked or blackened. Any of these words are going to be a better cooking out. But people, they have a preference for more fried fish and stuff like that. So it is less healthy than a non-fried version. Yes.
Do all the Hy-Vee stores have these options?
Yes, all the Hy-Vee stores have our kitchen area, like with where this meal came from. This is a roasted chicken breast with the veggies and stuff. We all have the Asian meals. We all have some sort of pizza option, and then they should all have the Market Grill Express, which is where this salad came from. And there are a couple other salads too. I know, again, sometimes salads we don't always want a salad, but we do have a berry pecan spinach salad, would be a really nice choice, and then an Asian chicken salad too. So, yes.
How often should I go out to eat?
Well, if the question was how often should I go out to eat, and that all of our lifestyles are different. What we've got going on, if you've got kids or family or friends or just don't like cooking. So it's hard to answer that question for you, but I would just, if it is more often, and you feel like you want to make some healthier choices, then really dive into some of these tips and figuring out the menus and stuff like that to keep yourself healthy. And if it's less often than that, then like I said in the beginning, maybe there's a little bit more wiggle room with some of your choices. So, all right. Well, that's all the questions that we had, I think, and our time is up. So thank you so much for tuning in. If you have any questions for me, you can contact me here at the Berry Road Hy-Vee. And also contact North Kansas City Hospital in Shanna Watt, who coordinates all your education with any of your questions. So have a wonderful night.